Hello, and welcome to the Talk to a Doc podcast. Today, our host, Kata Trent, a certified health coach and founder of Health Coaches of Kentucky, will have a conversation with a doctor about important wellness issues that can help you make a difference in your health.
Well, hello and welcome to the Talk to Doc podcast. In today's episode, I'm very excited to talk to Dr. Goldner. She is a board-certified psychiatrist who treats patients in the comfort of their own home using video conferencing, which is fantastic. Her mission is to help as many people as possible achieve the happiness they deserve. With the right guidance, she believes everybody can manage their anxiety and mood. This can be done with medication, nutrition, supplementation, meditation, and conversation. Her goal is to share the keys to finding happiness with as many people as possible. Dr. Goldner was the medical director of both the Transition Age Youth Program and the Wellness Center for one of the oldest and well-known nonprofit mental health agencies in America, Mental Health America of Los Angeles. But after having her second child, Dr. Goldner decided to exclusively treat patients using video conferencing so she can be home with her children and still do the job she loves, providing the best care for her patients. She is a pioneer in using natural foods to nourish and heal the brain, an effective treatment that helps her patients get better faster with less medications. She has a certification in plant-based nutrition from Cornell University, in addition to her medical training, and she is sought out by patients around the world for natural treatments for various medical conditions. So, Dr. Goldner, thank you so much for talking to me today. I'm very excited.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We talked a little bit on the phone before this interview a couple of weeks ago, and you have just a fascinating story, I think, very compelling, how you treated yourself and said goodbye to lupus. Could you share a little bit what happened to you, what the transformation there?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I am definitely no stranger to illness. In fact, I was diagnosed with lupus, which is an autoimmune disease that attacks various parts of your body as if they were an incoming, bacteria or something like that. Your body stops being able to recognize what's yours and what's an invading thing that needs to be killed. And so when I was 16, the lupus started attacking my kidneys, and I went into kidney failure at that time. And the doctors at the time told me if I hadn't gotten treatment, I would have had kidney failure and died in about 6 months. And I was very sick. People with lupus, I had arthritis all over my body and rashes anytime I went into to the sun, migraines. It was a very difficult thing to go through at a time when most people are just trying to pick out their prom dress. And at
Wow.
the time, it was, because my kidney failure was so serious, my doctor decided to do an experimental treatment at the time, which was using chemotherapy to shut down the immune system. Nowadays, they do use it. Usually, they only use it for about a week or so at a time. But when I was going through the program, they didn't know how long they needed to do it. So I had 2 years of chemotherapy straight. And
Wow.
so the first year was every month, and the second year was every 2 months. And basically, usually when people have chemotherapy for cancer, the side effect is it hurts your immune system. Well, they used it on purpose for me to shut off my immune system. And I kind of call it, they rebooted me like a computer. They shut it off and to see what happened when it came back. And I'm very grateful to those doctors because they really saved my life. While it was excruciating, from 16 to 18, I was in chemotherapy, and I basically was either sick from the chemo or I was studying. And, I still managed to graduate at top of my class and get into a very good college and all of that. But it took everything I had to do that.
Right.
And I actually had my last chemotherapy 1 week before I got to college. So it was it was
Wow.
an amazing experience. And actually, something I could say about that is, when I had chemo, it was, as soon as I got into the hospital, I started feeling sick. That mental part of you that just knows something's going to happen. I mean,
Right.
just before the treatment. And then I would be sick and not able to eat for about a week because of all the vomiting. And then after that, I'd just be afraid to eat. And it would take me about a month to recover. And then I'd have to get the next one. Well, when it was my last treatment, and I knew it was my last treatment, and I was going to college a week later, I didn't even get sick. Nothing. And that was the highest dose I'd ever had. Never got sick, never vomited. And it was one of those moments that I recall very clearly when I realized the power that the mind has over our body and our illness. And so I think that was one of those key moments that ended up leading to my specialty in psychiatry. Even though I do treat people for all different kinds of diseases with nutrition, I realized that my mindset had such a huge impact on even something like putting a toxic chemical into my body. So anyway, that because of the chemo, I was able to stop the kidney failure and was able to go to college. And it was really neat. Everyone's complaining about the homework. I was so happy to have normal problems like homework and studying, and I never complained about anything. And even I got through all of that pretty well. And I would get days where I would have to stay in bed and have arthritis and stuff like that, but I did pretty well. I got used to taking care of myself, and I went to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. And so one of the things people with lupus have to do is avoid the sun. There's no sun in Pittsburgh, so that was easy. So I made it, and I got into medical school, which was my dream. After my doctor saved my life, I really wanted to be able to save lives and to help people not suffer, and it was really important to me. And I got into medical school. And that's actually when I got sick again, because in medical school, you can't take a day off to stay in bed if you have arthritis, and you can't make sure you get 10 hours of sleep at night. When I was a medical student, they didn't have any laws protecting us on our sleep like they do now. Now you can't work more than 80 hours straight, which is still a lot. But back then, I remember times when I was working 100 hours a week. And, I meant 80 hours a week, not 80 hours straight, but 30 hours straight is the max when I went to residency. But when I was a med student, I was working sometimes 100 hours a week, and I got very sick, and I started getting double vision. And I had an episode where I was working in a medical clinic, and I didn't know where I was or what was going on around me. And I passed out. And that's when I found out that I had a new autoimmune disease called anticardiolipin antibody, where I started making blood clots, and some of the blood clots were going to my head. So that's when I ended up, I was diagnosed with this. And with people who have lupus, it's that's what I was told when I was young, and what I found out as a medical student is that for the rest of your life, there'll always be something else. Once your immune system is malfunctioning in this way, you will constantly get new things. And, it was one of those things where there's not much to look forward to besides disability and an early death. That's, I was never going to be able to have children. I was probably going to be handicapped by my 30s, and probably, if I was lucky, make it to my 50s, but maybe not. And so, this is kind of the sentence hanging over your head. And so when that happened, I'm like, okay, well, here's the next thing. And I've always had this belief inside me. I never quite believed then that I wasn't going to make it. I've always thought that, I'm going to have my life. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to follow my dreams, and, and it's going to work for me. I'm just going to keep going. And so I'm not going to say I didn't cry for about a week or two when I got diagnosed with the blood clots. I did. And then after that, I said, okay, you know what? They have a medicine for this. I can keep going. And so I started taking injections every day in my stomach to get the blood thinners in. And I was able to finish medical school and get the career and the dream that I wanted. So, I've always been grateful for Western medicine because it's life-saving. And even to this day, I definitely prefer treating people with food. But there is a place for Western medicine in that it is life-saving. If you are having blood clots, please take an injection that will stop the blood clots before you have a stroke. If you have kidney failure, then you're going to want to do something to save your kidneys. The problem with Western medicine is that it doesn't heal you. It doesn't make you any healthier. So while these medicines kept saving my life, my body still continued to be sick and find new things to do to make me sick. So, but because of these medications, I continued to live until I met my husband right 2 months before I graduated medical school. And that's actually what led to my healing. True love. True love.
And this is fantastic. You lived knowing that there is no cure for this, and then what happened? What did you do?
Well, I've always been very happy. Just, I think when you have serious disease, especially from a young child, you either become super morose and depressed, or you just become really happy for every little thing. And I've always just been really happy. Every little thing that every moment I always find something to be happy about. And so I've always been very cheerful, even though I had this kind of sentence hanging over me. And so when I met my husband, it was 2 months before I was leaving I got my residency at UCLA Harbor. And so I was leaving Pittsburgh, and I met the most amazing, incredible person that I have ever met, and Thomas Tadlock. And we just fell in love immediately. I mean, it was just, he just knocked my socks off, and, and it was very mutual. And by the end of the month, and we were 28 at the time, at the end of the month, we knew we were getting married. He didn't propose. We just knew it. We were just planning it. And I said, before we make these plans, you need to understand something about me. And I explained to him that I have this terrible disease, and that I take these injections every day, and that and that I'm probably not going to make it very long, and that you're going to end up taking care of me at some point. And I still can't tell a story without crying, and it was 10 years ago.
Right.
And he just looked at me, and he took a deep breath, and he said, I'd rather have a short time with you than a lifetime with somebody else. And so we decided to get married. And at the time, I mean, some folks might already know the name Thomas Tadlock. He's very well known for being America's #1 rapid fat loss expert. He was working with MTV at the time, helping, when a celebrity has to make a music video and have a six-pack, but they've been partying and have a big gut hanging down, they would call him and say, they need a six-pack in 1 month, and he could do it. So I said, well, I've spent my whole life trying to get a white coat, but I've never planned for a white dress. I said, I want to be as hot as those girls on MTV. I want to look hot for this wedding. And so he said, all right, I'll help you. And so I did his nutrition plan solely to get hot for my wedding. I did not expect to ever heal myself. There was no cure for lupus. I wish I was that brilliant that I knew something like this would happen. It was purely vanity that if I'm going to get wedding, I'm going to be hot. And I wanted to do it in a healthy way, because I knew I couldn't take risks with my body. I had friends who would just starve themselves for their wedding, and I wasn't going to do that. I wanted to be really fit and healthy. And so I did what he created for me, called the Dream Body Program. And at the time, I was about a size 11, and I was working out a couple hours a day and barely eating. I could barely maintain that. And I did his program, and in 4 months, I was a size 3, completely ripped and muscular and fit, and feeling the best I'd ever felt in my life. And when I did this program, I was already a vegetarian. I'd been a vegetarian since I was 13. My parents stopped eating meat for the animals for ethical reasons. And so I was already vegetarian. But when I did his program, he said, you can't consume dairy. Dairy makes people fat. So that's off the list, And so when I switched to his program, I accidentally became vegan. But it wasn't a plan. And so I did this program, and I got these amazing results, but I also felt amazing. And I said to him, you know what, I'm just going to keep eating this way because I feel so good. And when I went to my doctor, I had a new doctor in California who didn't know me since I was a kid like my other ones. And they did my blood work, and all the lupus tests were negative. And for those who don't know about this, that's not possible according to Western medicine. Once certain tests convert to positive, like your ANA, dsDNA, these lupus tests, they are positive for the rest of your life, whether you're in remission or not. And they were completely negative, like the disease never happened. Wow. And my blood clots, the antibodies to my blood clots were just mildly positive, which they never would even treat normally if I hadn't had a history with the blood clots. And so they said, this doesn't seem right. So, the guy said that I was alleging to have lupus. I'm like, no, seriously, I have some charts I can show you, because he had med students with him. He said, she alleges to have lupus. I've never seen a lupus person. I said, no, I really. So they did the tests again a couple months later, and the blood clots were all negative too. And so since then, that's been about 8 years now. Everything has not only stayed negative, I've gotten healthier and more vibrant. And my doctors told me I had genetically high cholesterol. Well, that's normal now. I've had 2 amazing healthy pregnancies where I have 2 boys now. One is going to be 6 soon, and one's going to turn 2 next month. And during both pregnancies, the doctor said, this is it. This is when the lupus comes back. And guess what? Not a problem. In fact, I had my first son. I was up walking around right after. I had to have a C-section because he was butt first. and I was still walking around hours later asking for lunch, and they couldn't believe it. And so now my doctors actually tell me I have an unusual ability to heal, which
Unusual.
it's amazing, because people with lupus never heal. If I would get sick when I had lupus, if I'd get a cold, I'd be in bed for 2 weeks. I don't even remember when I've had a cold last. It's been years. So, so that is my story. And believe it or not, that's the short version.
Right. This is such an inspiring and amazing story. I'm so happy I had a chance to share it with people. This is fantastic. And this is your unusual ability to heal. Do you believe that this unusual ability can be present in everybody if we eat right?
Absolutely. So after this happened to me, but first my husband and I weren't sure what was going on. Was this related to his program? Was what was going on? But we realized as time passed, we're both scientists. He's got a master's degree. I'm obviously an MD. And we decided to start doing research and figure out, what exactly is happening and what was it about his nutrition program that cured me? What did I stop eating that was making me sick? What did I start eating that could possibly heal? And so before I knew about even Gerson or, Furman, McDougall, and all of these people, I didn't know that those people even existed. We reinvented the wheel. We researched it, looking at biochemistry, physiology. We were looking at cells down on a cellular level, looking at how your cells interact with different kinds of foods and things, and what causes injury to cells and what causes healing to cells. And what we realized is that, yes, there are certain things that people eat every day that directly injures your cells. And if your cells are injured, they have to put all their energy and time into fighting the injury. And so therefore, you're much more likely to get sick, because your cells can't even fight disease because they're too busy trying to fix themselves, So if you've already got injured cells because you're eating things that are damaging, like dairy products or meat or processed foods, then if a virus comes along, then you're really screwed, right? So your body just can't fight very well, and you'll get sicker and sicker if this continues. So there's a word that kind of gets used. It gets used a lot and gets misinterpreted, but it's called inflammation. And, inflammation is normally a healthy process. It's how your body fights disease. You get an inflammation response, you get immune cells, and they help fix you, and then they move on. But when you have chronic or constant inflammation, because you're constantly hurting your cells by what you eat, then you're much more likely to get sick, and you're going to continue to get different kinds of diseases. For me, it was autoimmune disease. For somebody with different genetics, it's going to be heart disease or cancer. But your genetics only kick in when you've already got this constant cell injury. So if you take away the foods that hurt you, the processed foods, the animal-based foods like meat and dairy, if you take those away, then start giving your cells what they actually need to heal, which is high doses of natural plant foods. And I actually suggest that people do a high raw plant-based diet, because it's the raw plant foods that have all of the enzymes and vitamins and minerals we need. Then your cells can start healing, and it works for everybody. I mean, I've had people come to me with rheumatoid arthritis, with lupus, with brain tumor, with diabetes. Oh my gosh, diabetes is an easy one. I mean, in a month or two, people are off their meds and feeling great. I reversed cholesterol and heart disease, and it works for no matter what's wrong with you. This is the coolest part. There's no magical formula like you have to take this for heart disease or you need this for your diabetes. If you just give your cells the basic components of what they need to heal them, they will heal themselves. And it works for everyone. And it's just an amazing, amazing thing. And it's completely changed the way I practice medicine. And, of course, the way I raise my children as well.
Right. And that also fascinates me, the fact that if you eat right, then no matter what was going on with you, it will get better.
Yes.
It applies to everything, because we are one. The body is one. Everything is interconnected, and it's empowering to know that we have the power and ability to heal.
Yes.
And it's really good. And I'm promoting a high raw vegan diet to people I work with as well, and this is my children's diet as well. So as a mother, and you have children, I would like to address that and talk a little bit about children and their diet, because somehow people would look and accept the fact that maybe you are vegan and that's okay, but then if you talk about children, somehow they're more vulnerable and they shouldn't be vegan, or even high raw vegan, or God forbid raw vegan. So what's your response to people who say, well, what about children?
I think that the children it's true what you said, they are the most vulnerable. And so what do we do for our kids, or what do most people do, is they feed their kids the worst stuff, right? They feed them chicken nuggets and hot dogs and macaroni and cheese and all this terrible stuff. And what that does is multiple things. One, it creates terrible food addictions where they stop being able to really appreciate healthy foods because their taste buds have completely become addicted to these horrible, horrible processed foods, right? And animal foods. Number two is they are trying to grow. They are producing new tissue. Unlike us grown-ups who are just trying to maintain what we have for the most part, they are actively trying to produce muscle tissue, bone tissue, brain tissue. And what you feed them becomes their body. You know, grandma was right. You are what you eat. And so what you feed your child becomes their body, becomes their brain, becomes their health. What they have had, the research has shown that what your child eats from the age of birth to 18 has a greater effect on their health at 50 than what they ate from 18 to 50. So even if your kid goes to college and goes on a beer and pasta diet, if you fed them right till 18, they're probably going to be fine. You know, so it's really, really important. I grew up on Chef Boyardee, macaroni and cheese, and then my parents had a pizza business since I was 14. So that's what I ate, you know, and I always loved fruits and vegetables and things, but it wasn't enough to counteract the huge amount. Even when we were vegetarian, I say we were more cheeseitarian. I mean, the huge amount of processed foods and dairy and, you know, so it is especially important to feed our children right. And this is one of the battles I've had with patients, is that they will convert to eating the way I say, and it will reverse their disease, and they will still be feeding their kids goldfish crackers and chicken nuggets. And I'll say, listen, your kid has the same genetics as you. Do you want to make sure that they are disease-proof and never get sick? Or do you want to set them up for what you've been through? And then that's when they go, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. I just thought, well, they're not sick, so they don't need to worry. I said, no. You are right now creating their health for the rest of their life. And that usually helps people realize it, you know? And so my children have never had meat. My older kid, he had a brief dalliance with dairy when he was 1. And that was because, you know, when I was going through all this, I still always try to put my faith in my doctors. I'm a doctor, but I try not to take over for the doctors I hire. I try to hire people I trust. And my pediatrician said that, you know, at 1, I could start adding cow milk to the breast milk. And I said, I don't really understand why I need to do this. And he said, and this is what I learned in medical school too. And everything we do in medicine is supposed to be evidence-based medicine. So I trusted him at first. I added some cow milk. My son loved it. And so he was drinking that. And then we went back for his checkup a few months later, or 6 months later, and he went from vibrant health to having severe anemia. And so the doctor said, now we're going to start iron. And I said, wait a minute, how did he get so unhealthy? He was fine. And he goes, oh, it happens all the time. It's just a thing that happens. And I went, you know what, that's crap. You know, and it's kind of how Western medicine is, you know, that we just fix things when they break. Like, oh, it's broken. Yes. Let's give you a medicine. But the problem is, what about what happened? Why would my son? So I said, you know what, let me go back and check the research here. And so I read the research, and there is not one, I could not find one article, one paper that says that dairy is good for kids. And we tell every parent to give their kid cow milk at 1. Not one paper, but I found dozens of papers that are over 30 years old saying that dairy is toxic to your kids, that it is probably what causes type 1 diabetes to get initiated, that it causes bone loss, that it causes, you know, all these different diseases in children. And so I started crying when I was reading this research. I started crying and I said, you know what? This research has been around since I was a little kid being told to drink my milk. And how many children have gotten sick because their doctor told them to do this? It is just, it still makes me so frustrated and angry. And it just showed me in that moment the power of the lobbyists and the dairy industry over medicine and everything else. You know, we go to medical school and we think we're being taught the best way to treat people, and we're still being influenced by big business. And it's just heartbreaking. And it's not the doctor's fault because we don't even know it. We think we're spending, you know, our entire 20s and, you know, going into debt and doing our best just so that we can help heal people. We're being taught things that can actually hurt people. So I took my kid off of dairy immediately, threw it out. And I just started feeding him iron-rich foods. He's been drinking green smoothies since he was 6 months old. Both my children have. So we upped the spinach in his green smoothies. He was eating beans and raisins and things. And we went back a few months later, and his blood tests were all normal. And I said, you know, and I taught my doctor about it, and I handed him a copy of the China study.
That's a good way to do it. Do you supplement? Do you do B12 for your kids or yourself? Because this is the big subject out there.
No, I don't use B12 supplements. We eat a whole lot of nutritional yeast, though. I think it's its own food group at this point. We really love it.
Yeah.
My little boy, I call him my little boy, my older son, one of his favorite foods is sprouted tofu, raw sprouted tofu sprinkled with nutritional yeast and a little bit of Bragg's, and he loves it. We put that on a lot of foods. So, and actually when we started using that, my son's B12 levels were 3 times the highest level that's even read by the test. Normally it goes up to about 700 on a lab. His at 1 year old was over 2,000. The doctor went, oh my God, I've never seen anything that great. So, and you
That's
can't
great.
have too much. So that works fine. I do use a whole foods vegan vitamin and mineral supplement. I don't use it consistently, but I use one for myself too. I'm still nursing, and I just, there's a lot of debate on whether or not they're helpful, but I just kind of use it as an insurance policy. I don't think that we are having any kind of deficiency of vitamins and minerals, but it's just kind of one of those kind of insurance policy backup plans to have. I probably take my vitamin maybe once a week if I'm going to be completely truthful, but
Right. I still do B12 and D, vitamin D, during the winter, because I feel like we might not be getting enough sunlight, but the most of what you need comes from food, and the high raw is just the way to go, I feel. And and what would you recommend to people who are listening to your very motivating, inspiring talk and realize that they need to change now, they need to change? Where do they start? I know you have a book on green smoothies, and you have a program. How do you help people to switch, to transition?
Well, it really depends on the person. So when somebody is extremely ill, when they've got lupus that's killing their kidneys or attacking their lungs or their heart, they don't have time to mess around. And so people like that, I usually put on a 4-week detox program that I do. It's a detox and heal program. It's completely raw, but they work with me every day, and I teach them how it works with green smoothies, raw foods. I make sure I monitor their omega-3s, how much water they drink, because all those factors are important. A lot of people are so dehydrated they get sick. Your water is very important. So I monitor all the different aspects of their eating and make sure that they're getting what they need. And so in 4 weeks of doing it that way, I can dramatically transform people's health. In fact, I have people, usually the first week is when the dramatic results start happening. I had a woman who had lupus in her lungs where every single breath was painful. She was in her 60s, a minister's wife. Every single breath was painful. You can even imagine that. And she was taking narcotics just to make breathing less painful. And after 1 week, she was off the narcotics, and she'd been on them for 10 years. And 1 week, the pain was gone from her lungs from eating this, completely raw detox program. So it's powerful. But it's very severe for someone to go from the standard American diet to green smoothies and, raw foods is a difficult thing. But if it's an emergency, that's what we do. But for most people, especially people who aren't feeling sick, that's kind of dramatic. So what I usually recommend for people is to go stepwise. The most important thing you can do for your health is to get rid of dairy products. I think dairy products are more dangerous than cigarettes. And people think I'm a lunatic when I tell them I'd rather you give your kid a cigarette than give him a glass of milk. And I don't really want people to give their kids cigarettes.
I'm sure Dr. McDougall will agree with you. I think he's big, and yeah.
Yeah, he's a riot. Dr. McDougall is a riot. But anyway, I think he's a fun guy. Anyway, but yeah, him and me are crazy enough to say that kind of stuff. And we're not recommending you give your kids cigarettes, but to realize it's that toxic. So for many people, when I actually just have them stop using dairy, they feel so much better. They can't even believe it. I mean, I have kids that had asthma, that the asthma's gone in 2 weeks because they stopped having milk in their cereal. I mean, it's that dramatic. So I usually tell people, start with that. Find a substitute for dairy. If you can't live without it, then, find a substitute like almond milk or coconut milk or, and try different brands because they all taste different. I remember my husband, when he first, when I said we're going to stop with dairy, the whole house became vegan. There was no question. And so the first the first milk alternative he liked was Trader Joe's almond milk. That was the only kind he liked at first. Now he doesn't even care. He'll get whatever. But, it seems like everybody has a certain taste that they like. So I encourage people to try the different kinds. I can't stand hemp milk, but I know people who love it. So, try the different things and have an open mind. But, really get off of that. I know people who are addicted to yogurt. There's so many different plant-based yogurts out there. There's soy milk yogurt. There's almond milk yogurt, all that kind of stuff. And so dairy is really the most important thing. And the other thing you need to start doing is start adding what you're missing. It's really hard to just give up everything you're addicted to and switch over to all these healthy plant-based foods all at once. It's like telling someone to get off cocaine and you're giving them an apple instead. They're like, I just don't feel very good on this apple right now. So what I tell people is leave your addictions in place. If you're addicted to McDonald's, fine, eat the McDonald's, but I want you to add raw foods to your life and start giving your body what it's missing. And so the easiest way to do that is with green smoothies, because you don't have to sit there and chew it. You can just drink it down. And you really need a lot of raw foods to combat all the problems that are going on in your cells. And so the best way to get a ton of raw foods in your body is to have a green smoothie. So that's the reason I made the green smoothie recipes to kickstart your health and healing. That my book that's on Amazon is that people would say, great, that's a great idea. How the hell do I make it taste good? Because people were making some horrible green smoothies and texting me and emailing me and saying, I can't do this. So I made this recipe book that has 28 recipes using all different kinds of fruits and vegetables so people can find ones that they like. So that to me is the best way to start. And then as you start feeling better because you're drinking these green smoothies and you're not having dairy, then you start eliminating things. Maybe eliminate meat maybe you go with Meatless Monday, and start coming up with new recipes on Mondays and then try to extend it through the week. And, so I think it really depends on the person, but I find people are really successful when they're scared to do it by doing it stepwise like that. And there's so many recipes out there. If you can buy recipe books that have whole food, plant-based diet, but you can also Google, plant-based lasagna. You can Google anything that you're feeling like you're craving and find a plant-based version of it that's not going to be as toxic for you.
Right, absolutely. There are so many resources out there. It's not as difficult, I think, as it used to be. It's out there. So, okay, we almost done here, but I want to ask you one more question. What about fruit and all the sugar?
I don't really think that fruit is such the bad guy people are trying to make it out to be. I think when your body is inflamed because you've been hurting it with all these different kinds of things. So when you're eating a lot of processed foods, and when I say processed foods, I mean, if you look at the ingredients, there's names on there that you have to be a chemist to know what they are. When you're eating those kind of chemicals, your body gets inflamed because it doesn't know what it is, and it actually creates an immune response to it. When you're eating foods like meat and dairy that create acidity and inflammation in your body, then you're going to have really strange reactions to even natural foods. I have people who tell me they're allergic to avocados or they're allergic to spinach or weird things, and I'm like, you shouldn't be allergic to that. And when they go off of the negative foods and they start eating a plant-based diet, the allergies go away. Their bodies can process those foods without getting sick that used to make them ill. And so what I think is when you are inflamed, your body is not responding well to anything. And so even things like fruit, you're already having problems with regulating your insulin because you have all these processed sugars and things in your body. You add fruit, which is just a natural sugar, and your blood sugar is going way up and your insulin is spiking. But I don't think that that's our natural response to fruit. I think that's a sick person's response to fruit. And I've had people who had diabetes, type 2 diabetes, switch to green smoothies that had fruit in them, kale or spinach and fruit to make it taste good, because that's the only way to really get that green smoothie yummy. And their blood sugar normalized. So right. I don't think fruit is our enemy. I think that when you're already sick, then your body tends to have strange reactions to natural foods. So I think if someone is trying to get healthy and they're eating a plant-based diet, then they don't need to be afraid of food. And I've changed my ideas about that over the years. I mean, at once I thought that could hurt your blood sugar, but that's one thing about what I do. I didn't make up rules 10 years ago, and I still use those. I'm constantly reading research. I'm working with clients. My husband works with thousands of people, and he does his own research studies using groups of people on fat loss, weight loss, and muscle building. And he does it completely using vegan diet now too. And what we've seen is that fruit actually is not a bad guy like we thought it might be years ago. And, there's a lot of confusing information on the internet. And that's why you want to work with people who actually are working with people and seeing what's happening with them and not just reading articles and trying to make up what they think might happen.
Right, absolutely. And you're one of those people, and I think people can. So, the place where they can find you is skypepsychiatrist.com. I think you have another website about Goodbye to Lupus, is that right?
Yeah, so you can find me at veganmedicaldoctor.com. It's an easy one to remember. And so veganmedicaldoctor.com, and also goodbyelupus.com for folks who are looking to enroll in the 4-week program that I have or find out more information about that. So they can contact me through either website, actually, and that's fine.
Right. Well, this was a wonderful interview. Thank you so much for your energy and your work and inspiring people to give them hope that they can indeed get healed and get healthy. And this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And absolutely, you can take back your health. You can have the life that you want. And I'm here to help make sure that you can figure out how to do that. So anyone who wants to contact me and learn more, please go ahead and look me up.
Okay, thank you. We'll post information to your links below this podcast. Okay. Well, bye for now.
Bye for now. Thanks so much.